Hello Curious! Special effects have existed in cinema almost from the beginning of its existence, and nowadays no film can do without them. They take viewers to fantastic worlds, show impossible things, and create magic that remains in the mind long after the screenings end. So, moreover, using the illusions on the screen, the scenes that went down in the history of cinema were created. So, in which films were we able to see the most impressive special effects? And which of them changed the film industry forever? How were they created, and which productions charmed us to such an extent that we believed what we saw on the screen is reality, and see how much magic was created on the screen. But also, don't forget to click on the subscription button now and enable the notifications. Are you guys ready? Then we invite you to watch our episode with the wow effect. When you think about special effects that appeared in movies for the first time, what do you think? Which years are we betting on, the 60s or 70s? The answer to this question may surprise you quite a bit. Imagine that their origins can be traced to the previous century, and to be precise, it was 1895. It was then that Alfred Clark, in a film about Mary, Queen of Scots, used a trick that seems simply easy nowadays. Mr. Clark stopped the camera for a moment in the scene of the deprivation of the head of the title so as to replace the actress with a dummy, which is decapitated, and a few seconds later, so that little as much is known, because of that moment, unknown by many, started a real revolution in cinema. Starting from this inconspicuous cinematography trick from over 100 years ago, we have now come to films that almost entirely consist of impressive special effects. And one example is this blockbuster Avengers series so popular in recent years. But before the filmmakers got to this point, a lot happened along the way. A real milestone in the field of special effects was in 2001 the production of A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick in 1968. Many new and previously unused movie tricks and technologies were invented for his needs, which definitely do not look like they came from the 1960s. And so, for example, the amazing scene of the rotating corridor was created thanks to the construction of a huge structure which not only reproduced the appearance of the inside of the spacecraft, but also gave the effect of the lack of gravity by spinning. The final sequence of the stellar gate was created through the use of slotted photography, which fused two separate sets of the film together and saturated them with unusual colors. Besides, A Space Odyssey inspired many other artists, like Star Wars' George Lucas. Did you know that it was one of the reasons why Star Wars was created? George Lucas was so fascinated by Kubrick's film that he began working on his own life masterpiece, and one could only literally write a book about the special effects used in Star Wars. The director and his crew created groundbreaking solutions and tools that created some of the most iconic scenes in history of the cinema. The battles of the spacecraft or the sequences of destruction of the Death Star were possible thanks to the invention of the so-called dictrosflex. So this mechanism consisted of special cameras controlled by a computer system, which repeatedly made the same movement, and this allowed for the shooting of complex shots. It was also used to create the opening scene in which the subtitles flow into outer space, which you probably all know. Don't you curious? The shooting of the first parts of the saga was based on countless mock-ups, models, and props, which were set in motion thanks to a special non-stop motion animation developed for this purpose. The amazing effects of this arduous work could be seen, for example, in the battle on the scene on Hoth, where huge machines would move smoothly. And in contrast, the newer episodes, starting with the Star Wars Phantom of the Menace, the director decided to create entirely using computers. It is thanks to this fact that first completely computer-generated character in history of the cinema was created, and it was Jar Jar Binks, created thanks to the motion capture technology, which involves capturing the movements of live actors and saving them on the computer. It was also that who they used successfully in later years to create so many distinctive film characters. For an example, Gollum from The Lord of the Rings, whose movements, facial expressions, and even voice were created thanks to Andy Serkis, and it was he who on the set of the film who wore a specialized suit with mounted points and the so-called markers, the movements of which were transferred to the computer, which allowed to create a three-dimensional version of Gollum's character. Other most interesting characters created thanks to the motion capture technique include Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean series, Caesar from the Planet of the Apes, or another role by Andy Serkis, Smaug from The Hobbit effectively played by Benedict Cumberbatch, or Zoe Saldana as Neriti from the Avatar superproduction, which we will tell you about in a moment. Before all these heroes were resurrected by computer, thanks to pioneering special effects, dinosaurs returned to the Earth. Of course, the movie ones, and probably each of you know which production we're talking about now. The 1993 Jurassic Park is still a landmark of work today, and as for the first time in history of cinema, computer-generated animals were created, though we should rather say reptiles. In order for them to look as realistic as possible, a completely new program was developed, which allowed them to recreate the appearance of their skin or muscle work on the screen. Nobody has dealt with such details before in the film industry, and it is worth noting that the filmmakers employed in specialists who previously created special effects in Star Wars or in the movie Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Of course, we cannot remain indifferent to the second part of the Terminator because there are special effects that were directly stuck in the chair. So it was the first film in the history of cinema that managed to show realistic movements of the human body using computer graphics. So for this purpose, the body of Robert Patrick, who played the role of the killer T-1000, was scanned and the image was uploaded to a computer. It was used to create an animation in which a man transforms into a robot made of liquid metal. Yes, we're talking here, among other things, about the iconic scene in which the T-1000 penetrates the bars. So then, to make computer animation smoothly turn into a living actor, a technique called morphing was used, which was on a large scale for the first time in this film. And having heard this, it was perhaps surprising that Terminator 2: Judgment Day is still considered the best part of the series to this day, though the special effects are just one of the reasons behind it. What part of the Matrix series is considered the best? For many, it was definitely the first one that appeared on the cinema screens in 1999. It's thanks to that Keanu Reeves and the Wachowski siblings, the bullet time technique gained world fame. We think many of you know the scene where Neo lunges backwards in slow motion while bullets glide over him, leaving glittering tracks in the air, and all this is captured by a camera orbiting the actor in real time. This is bullet time, and such an amazing effect that was achieved thanks to the arrangement of cameras in a semicircle, which take a picture of the same sequence but from different angles, and thanks to this, the viewer can see the smallest details of action. And although the roots of this time slowing down technique can be traced to anime films, The Matrix brought its greatest fame, and despite the fact that more than 20 years have passed since its premiere, this special effect is still one of the most used in films. It appeared among others in such popular productions as X-Men, Deadpool, Shrek, or in computer games. So by the way, I wonder if Matrix 4, whose premiere is scheduled for 2021, will also see slow bullet time scenes. With this technique, we will remain for a while because it's a curiosity that Will Smith himself rejected the proposal to play the role of Neo in the first part of The Matrix. So at that time, the actor just couldn't imagine how he would have to act in scenes using The Matrix. So at that time, he preferred to star in a production of The Wild Wild West rather than in The Matrix, and then he apparently regretted this decision very much. However, the decision to play in Avatar certainly did not regret any of the actors appearing there. The production, directed by James Cameron, appeared in cinemas in 2009 and is still considered one of the most expensive and most profitable films in the history of cinema. It revolutionized the technology of 3D filming, which was just crawling, for like 11 years. And for the needs of Avatar, 3D cameras were used for the first time in history, faithfully imitating the way human eyes see space. And thanks to this, the realism of the image was simply breathtaking. It was also one of the first films to consist almost entirely of computer special effects. While nowadays it is simply a standard for some productions, an example of this is of course the Avengers, which employs up to 20 companies to create computer effects. Currently, it is on productions that dictate the rules of creating an unforgettable illusion in the cinema, one which is difficult to distinguish fiction from reality, and technology is still moving forward, so who knows what the special effects will look like in the future. And exactly, what do you think, curious? Are we still going to have a revolution in this area? Do you know all the movies and scenes we talked about in today's episodes? Or maybe you would add another title to the list. What movie do you think has the best special effects? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you again in the next video.